Alright guys, welcome back to the channel where today I can finally bring you a hands-on preview for WWE 2K22, as earlier this week I was invited to try out the game ahead of release and get a hands-on impression. So before we jump into that, if you're new to the channel and you want to stay up to date with everything WWE 2K22, please do hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications as I'll have lots more coverage incoming. Now, unlike in past years where the hands-on sessions have taken place in person, this year everything was done digitally via Steam, therefore the version that I played was the PC version. Now, rather than being the full version of the game, the version that I got to play didn't have all of the modes available, as the build was restricted to Exhibition and MyGM, and there was also only a set amount of stars that I could use. I also wasn't allowed to record any gameplay, which I know a lot of people will be disappointed about, but on the flip side of that, not being able to record meant I could purely focus on playing the game and testing out all of the changes. So first up, we have to talk about the visuals, as this game, especially when it comes to entrances, looks absolutely phenomenal. Bear in mind, I played the PC version, which is said to be the same version as that of Xbox One and PS4, so technically this was the last gen version that I played, yet visually this looked like a PS5 title, as the entrances look even better in person than they do in videos. Along with the upgrades to graphics, the biggest change to entrances comes with the new entrance camera, which may sound like a throwaway feature, but I can't stress enough just how different this makes entrances look, as they're presented much more like they are on TV. That's also true for some of the older entrance animations, as it's not just the new animations that have the updated camera, as some of the stars that I used with older animations also had the updated camera, and that change alone left the entrance feeling 100 times better. Moving on to gameplay, there's a lot of changes this year which makes jumping straight into a match pretty confusing, especially when it comes to the new combo system and grapples, but thankfully to help players learn the controls, the first time that you boot up the game you'll be taken to a tutorial which is hosted by Drew Gulak. This tutorial will walk you through all of the changes and help you get up to speed, which is a great addition not just for returning players that are used to the controls from 19 or 20, but especially for new players playing for the first time. If you're too eager to play it, you can also skip the tutorial and head straight to the main menu. Then if you find yourself struggling with the controls and you want to go back and complete it, then you can select the tutorial at any point from the main menu. In the 2 hours that I got to play the game, I actually managed to take in quite a lot of action, with the first area that I jumped into being Exhibition, as this build of the game was locked to Exhibition matches or MyGM. After initially struggling to get to grips with the new mechanics, I actually found myself quite enjoying the gameplay, as it's a lot more fluid and fast paced than previous games, with the biggest difference being that I found it a lot more engaging, as I wasn't always waiting on moves to play out, as there was always something to press, whether that be a reversal, a mid-move reversal or a breaker. Adding to this, moves also appear to have been sped up, as the animations play out a lot faster, which decreases the wait time, although there are a few moves that do look a little bit out of place when running as fast as they do. So that's my initial thoughts on the gameplay, but let's dive a little bit deeper and I'll explain some of the changes to the reversal system and the introduction of blocks, dodges and breakers. Of these new systems, the dodge mechanic was the one that surprised me the most, as after seeing the footage of this in one of the early trailers where Big E ducked a punch, I thought this mechanic looked out of place and more relevant for a boxing game. However, when trying this out, it actually works really well. The dodge animations, they all differ depending on the direction that you press and the class of your superstar, as while Big E might use the duck animation, a cruiserweight like Rey Mysterio is capable of performing an evasive roll. The most natural of the animations comes when moving the stick backwards away from your opponent, as this sees the player move their head back to avoid the strike, which when you successfully use it and then you follow it up with a strike of your own, it makes for a really cool sequence. Alongside the dodge mechanic, standard reversals are still available by pressing triangle or Y depending on your console, with mid-move reversals also included for certain moves. However, this year the reversal limit has been taken out, therefore you're free to reverse as often as you like. In addition to pressing the reversal button to reverse a move, holding it allows you to hold your hands up and perform a block, which stops you from taking light strikes and gives you a slight window to quickly counter-strike your opponent. Of all the new mechanics, this one was the one that I used the least, not because it was bad, mainly because I found the dodge option to be much more effective. Moving on to breakers, these are a chance to stop your opponent from performing a grapple move when entering the grapple state, as once a player presses the grab button to grapple an opponent, if the player being grappled presses the same button that their opponent does, then this will see them perform a breaker which will counter the move and break up the grapple. With all the new counter and reversal options, there's a lot of ways that players can stop their opponent from attacking, especially with the removal of the reversal limit. Now, in regards to this, when playing against the AI, which was set to normal, matches flowed pretty well, with the AI itself being a big upgrade over past games. However, when I played a match against another player and fellow content creator Revolution, the match that we had was much harder, as there were a lot more reversals and counters with all the new options, which led to some really fun matches that went back and forth. So with all these additions, I found the gameplay to be pretty fun and a refreshing change, as it is a lot more competitive. However, there was one new system that I really wasn't a fan of, and that was the combo system. So to explain why I wasn't a fan of this, I'll go over the combo system in a bit more detail, as the combo system this year sees strike attacks work completely different to how they have in the past, as rather than pressing a direction and then pressing or holding the strike button to perform a move, strike attacks are now the result of combos. To explain how the new system works, what used to be the strike button is now referred to as light attacks, what used to be the grapple button is now heavy attacks, and what used to be Irish whip is now grabs. So to give you an example, one of Rey Mysterio's combo moves is a running sit-out facebuster, which to perform it you have to press light heavy grab, which equates to pressing XXAB. One of the issues that I had with this is that it's a lot more complicated than we used to, as in previous games all you had to remember was to press a specific direction and then either tap or hold the strike button, whereas this year each player has 30 different combos available, 10 that are a combination of pressing the 3 buttons, 10 that use a combination of those buttons when moving the left stick away from your opponent, and then 10 when moving it towards them. So with this many combos, unless you tend to use the same superstar and you get used to their moveset, it's impossible to remember which combo works for which move, as every superstar is different. Therefore it's a godsend that the pause menu features a full list of combos so that you can see how to perform a specific one. So that's my initial impressions on the gameplay side of things, but staying with Exhibition, I also had the chance to try out the new Backstage Area. The new Backstage Area, which we briefly seen in the trailer, is one huge area consisting of several different levels, as the ladders seen in the background can be climbed to access to higher areas, which is very reminiscent of Here Comes the Pain, where you had a cage to do moves on and then a higher area with a walkway. From these higher areas, it's also possible to perform moves off the platform, similar to the way that moves worked from the big truck in 2K19 or in 2K20. The area is also scattered with a bunch of weapons, as there's hockey sticks, stop signs and chairs, along with movable tables, meaning you can set these up next to the climbable areas and then perform diving attacks through them. Also included in the middle of the backstage is a group of equipment boxes and wooden pallets, with these working as a large platform that you can climb onto and wrestle. Other sections included in the backstage area include an interview area over to the left near the elevator, then on the far right you've got a big parking lot with cars to climb and an ambulance. Aside from the new backstage, there wasn't any other new match types in this build, but I did get to test out some of the returning matches like Hell in a Cell, TLC and Extreme Rules, all of which played really well. In terms of changes or updates to those matches, there were a few slight changes, as TLC and ladder matches no longer limit where you can place tables or ladders, and the Hell in a Cell is a lot easier to break out of, as the wall now breaks after 2 Irish whips, which does save a lot of time. As for Extreme Rules, the weapons available were pretty limited in the build that I played, as you could only select a hockey stick, a shovel, sledgehammer, chair, kendo stick, baseball bat, a stop sign, table or a ladder, which is way down on the options that were introduced in 2K20, where there was an abundance of weapons to choose from. One of the reasons for that though may be the fact that the weapons that are available now take damage, as the steel chair would begin to bend and break, as would the stop sign, with the kendo stick also beginning to splinter and then snap in half. There's also a few new weapon animations that were included, as rather than using the stop sign like the steel chair, if you use it when an opponent is on the ground, instead of striking them with it, then you'll actually throw it at them. As for the available arenas, I won't go through all of them at the moment, as the list wasn't complete, but I was happy to see that there's a lot of different arenas from the past few years, including some of the special NXT sets like In Your House and Vengeance Day. Also included is a selection of recent Raw and SmackDown arenas, some of which need to be unlocked before you can use them, although a lot of the older Attitude Era arenas like Raw's War and the original SmackDown weren't actually included. One of the most impressive things though was the addition of the WWE Thunderdome, which is complete with the option to turn on the virtual crowd, which when you do, you will recognise some of the familiar faces from the 2K dev team, including art director Christina DM Pham. So that's the changes to gameplay and some of the available options, but what about MyGM? Well, MyGM is one of the biggest new modes that 2K are pushing this year, with the mode offering players a similar experience to that of GM mode in the older SmackDown vs Raw games. Heading into the mode, I was a little bit hesitant, as I'll freely admit that I wasn't a big fan of the old GM mode, but after playing through a couple of weeks, I did find it to be quite interesting, as there's a lot of nice little touches in there with the addition of show notes and social media, which help to give players some feedback and some tips. The setup options are also really well done, as not only do you get to choose your own GM and your own show, but you can also choose the GM and the show that you're competing against, as well as selecting all of the superstars and custom superstars that you want to appear in the draft. Once you've selected everyone that you want to appear, you can also save that list so that you can use it in the future. There's also the option to edit superstars before the draft so that you can increase the popularity of a star, set them as a legend, or change their class. So there's quite a lot of options in there, especially when you also factor in the ability to have custom GMs. However, one thing that I feel let it down is the fact that you can't select a custom show name or a custom brand, as it would have been nice to let players set up their own show to go up against a Raw or a SmackDown, or even include options to manage classic shows like Raw's War or Nitro, as I feel that is a missed opportunity. Admittedly, I don't know how well the mode's going to hold up over time, as I feel that booking shows will start to get somewhat repetitive when playing against the AI. However, if you're playing a multiplayer match against another person, I think that has much more potential, and that's where this mode is going to shine, though unfortunately it was confirmed that the only way to do that is either local multiplayer, inviting a friend using Steam's Game Share feature, or by using PlayStation's SharePlay. So to sum up MyGM, I enjoyed what I played, but I didn't get to fully take it in due to the limited time that I had, as I found myself having to skip over feedback to make the most of the time that was available. All in all though, I do think the mode is off to a good start, and I think there are a lot of ways that they can expand on it in the future. So that's my initial impressions on WWE 2K22, but I will add that this was the most polished game that I've ever tried when it comes to an early preview, as it looks like 2K have really spent a lot of time bug testing and making sure that it runs just as it should. Anyway guys, that does it for this preview, but if you're not already, please do hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so that you don't miss out on future videos, as I'll have a lot more coverage over the weekend. Until then though, thank you so much for watching, have yourself an awesome day, and I'll catch you later.